Ford Motor Company for my research paper. And basically, I talk more about Henry Ford and his impression on American people, and also how he changed our history in 2 different ways. Okay, so this is basically his history of Henry Ford. When Henry Ford was just a teenager, he worked on the farm with his parents in Detroit, and he absolutely hated it, but he was forced to. So what he was forced to do is he got out of farming and became an apprentice for a mechanist in Detroit, and then moved away and got married, and then came back to Detroit, and then to support his family, or not his family, but his wife and his wife, he worked for a sawmill, and then moved back to Detroit, and then became an engineer at Edison Illuminated Company, which was Thomas Edison's engineering company in Detroit. And so you can change it. And then, okay, so Henry Ford, we all know Henry Ford as the creator of Ford cars, obviously. So what he did was make the first motor the gas-running motor for a car. And the first one was the quadricycle. Right over here is the quadricycle, kind of looks like a bike. But he sold that model to get more money for his company and made the Model T. The Model T was very, very complicated to drive, very, very complicated to work with. So what he did is made it very affordable for our people to buy it and drive it all around. And so Ford didn't invent cars. He invented an assembly line. And that assembly line was to create 4 cars per minute. So he gathered as much workers, much people who could work for him during the time, and had lots of machinery. So he had 4 cars per minute, as much as the time, 24 hours, double that in a week. So he was very successful with his company. So I have a video, and this explains what his impression was on our people, which was a very positive impression at the very beginning. And this is the first part where he made history. He made the first motor, a car, and it made it very affordable, and made an assembly line to double up on his products. And we can play that.
Ford had once been voted the greatest man in history, after Napoleon Bonaparte and Jesus Christ. Perhaps Americans saw in him what they liked best in themselves in 1927. A millionaire Huck Finn, a shy, awkward farm boy turned automaker, who hated laziness and disorder, labor unions, and Wall Street bankers. He was the living symbol of power, prosperity, and America's faith in every man for himself, in that time before the Great Depression, when captains of industry mattered more than presidents. Back in 1914, Ford had revolutionized assembly line production, and to keep his workers from quitting, he announced he would raise their pay to a generous $5 a day, twice what they earned before, and twice what they could earn at any other auto company. It was a simple American bargain: security and high wages in exchange for hard work.
The legend of Henry Ford, of course, was greatly embellished by his offer of $5 a day, and the word of that penetrated the most remote mountain village in West Virginia and Kentucky and Tennessee, and the Brothers heard about the $5 a day, and Willie too, and I can tell you, it looked mighty good.
They came to Detroit in hopes of a life they could find nowhere else. Ford workers enjoyed company picnics, could live in company housing, and even buy the Ford cars they produced. High wages paid off in high production and high profits for the company.
My family moved to Detroit in 1927 from Columbus, Ohio. I didn't like Detroit when I first moved. In fact, I ran away 3 times, went back to Columbus, Ohio. But my daddy finally convinced me the 3rd time that I had to stay. And Detroit at that time was a booming town. Business was booming, cars were being bought, and you had the big bands, you had the dance hall, everything was going great.
My father and uncle arrived in Detroit in 1926 from Mexico via Kansas City in a Model T. People came from Guanajuato, San Luis Potosí, of course Mexico City.
And in our neighborhood, I know of no kid that I associated with where their parents were born in America. Nobody.
We had the Poles, we had the Lithuanians, we had Finnish, we had Scotch, we had Italian.
In great waves of migration from Europe and the American South, the hopeful had found their way to Detroit's thriving ethnic neighborhoods. They had been Ukrainian peasants and Alabama sharecroppers. Now they were auto workers, 50,000 strong at Ford's River Rouge factory, the largest industrial complex in history. Here was a strange new world. Thundering forges, the huge foundry and powerhouse, the endless miles of assembly line. They called it the Cathedral of Industry, and here, like clockwork, they made 4 cars every minute, 240 an hour, 6,000 Fords a day. The heart of American industry was Detroit, and the heart of Detroit was Henry Ford's Rouge.
Okay. So basically you can see that his impression on the Americans, they obviously loved him and respected him a whole lot. Yeah. And they thought of him as this wonderful person. But like I said before, he changed our history in 2 ways. One was the auto industry, and the second, he was the main influence to Adolf Hitler as creating the Holocaust. Henry Ford absolutely just disliked Jews. He disliked them, thought what they were trying to take over the world when it comes to religion, beliefs in God. He disliked them for that, and for some reason he had this stupid, crazy conspiracy theory that they were trying to enslave Americans, so it was ridiculous. So he actually had his own newspaper called the Dearborn Independent, which is from the New York Times. Each article he wrote was about the Jews, singling out Jews. He had the International Jew, which is the book. He has a book all about his articles, and when Adolf Hitler was in jail, he was reading these articles of Henry Ford. And this was before any of this even existed, before the Holocaust, any of that. And so each article Adolf Hitler was reading in jail, used it as his little textbook to learn, and you can go to the next slide. And in Hitler's quote, he said, "I shall do my best to put Ford's theories into practices." Another quote that I didn't put in there was also that he himself, Adolf, said that Henry Ford was his main inspiration to the Holocaust. Should have put that in there. But, yeah, so when Adolf Hitler came out, like, Henry Ford and the world mass-produced automobile, you know how I was saying that he created an assembly line? Well, the assembly line was to make millions of cars, blah, 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 and then Adolf took that, like, theory or that idea, made his assembly line of killing Jews in concentration camps, especially Auschwitz. And in Auschwitz, he was able to kill millions thousands and thousands of Jews, even not even people who are Jews, to, like I was doing, okay, so you produce more cars and you lose a lot of Jews. That's what Adolf Hitler did, and that's what Henry Ford did with his cars. The slide before, you see Henry Ford getting a prize called the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, which is a very noble prize to Henry Ford, that was not a non-citizen, because Henry Ford was an American, and his corporation actually, was an American corporation. So it was a big shock, and a lot of people do not know that. A lot of people do not believe it, but there is proof all over. You can look it all over the internet. And he had, like I was saying, he had those newspapers, and it got all around. Everybody started saying that he was anti-Semitism, and everybody was criticizing him, but a lot of people didn't believe it at the same time. But Henry Ford really disliked Jews, and what he did, he put millions of dollars towards the Holocaust. Even his Ford cars, he transferred Jews to concentration camps and back and forth. He did that. It was pretty crazy. And so that's two ways I believe he changed our history. He put a mark on the auto industry and the Holocaust. And this is what I disliked about him and why I do not like Henry Ford. So you go to the next one. So back to his actual company. You guys know what brainwashing is? No? Yes? Okay, so you guys have heard of brainwashing, right? So, okay, like, say he's like telling us that his company is eco-friendly, his company is going green, but he's just telling us, and he's brainwashing us to think that his company is actually eco-friendly, but it's really not. So you know he has the Ford Hybrid out, and that is supposed to save lots of, it's supposed to do good to our environment. He actually stopped making those, just stopped trying to advance it more, and started making more gas-guzzling SUVs, which is horrible to our environment. He tries to make us believe, us Americans believe, that he is going green. Not true. He's actually making our environment much worse. And so what I tell him is he's supposed to go green. And there's a lot of safety issues when it comes to his cars. There's lots of unexpected explosions. When you're like driving his car, especially stick shifts, high speeds, definitely there's going to be a lot more explosions in Ford cars, which I wouldn't trust his company. I don't trust Henry Ford myself, which is, well, he was the main inspiration of the Holocaust. And so his company also tries to brainwash us to think he is some great company, but it's really not. He's just fooling us.